Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning. We've got an exciting show. We're going to hear from the authors, the husband and wife historian group, Christopher and Sharon Leahy, about the book Presidentess, the life of First Lady Julia Tyler. I think you're going to find that interesting. I know we have a lot of history buffs. That'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. Mark writes in this morning and says, good morning. Well, good morning, Mark. President Trump admits contractor error on the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. And he signed an executive order eliminating some childhood vaccines, and doctors are furious about it. We're going to talk about the vaccine issue here in just a little bit. But to Mark's point, President Trump said over the weekend that there was some contractor errors with the renovation to the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, saying there was substantial damage to the reflecting pool, but also, unfortunately, there is no video or proof other than the damage itself. We are working on the pool, and it will reopen shortly. As with many jobs, there was also some contractor error done by rushing the job for a July 4th opening. But it was a very small area of this massive pool and was relatively inconsequential. Trump claimed that a National Parks Service career employee, a highly credible witness, saw Olympian David Hearn in broad daylight vandalizing the reflecting pool by violently ripping and tugging at the pool's somewhat delicate coating. He added that the employee's testimony was provided to Janine Pirro. The president concluded his post by saying that security cameras have been and are being installed. So to Mark's point, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Yesterday, we got a couple of quick things to get to before we talk about Iran. Also, we have so much about the rise of the Democrat Socialist of America because you now see, again, not being reported, but the kind of Democrat civil war going on. But before that, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth led tributes yesterday to the late Senator Lindsey Graham as the largest military base in his home state of South Carolina was renamed in honor of Graham, saying Senator Lindsey Graham dedicated his life to serving his state and serving the armed forces of the United States. He served this nation both in uniform and in both houses of Congress. In both capacities, it was always the same mission. He knew the timeless truth that to ensure peace, we must prepare for war. Protect your people, protect your state, protect your sovereignty, or you will lose it to someone else who is willing to take it from you. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, a South Carolina native, noted that Joint Base Lindsey Graham housed the backbone of Air Force's C-17 fleet, the workhorse of our air defense, saying, from today forward, these planes will have Joint Base Graham on their tail. A reminder that Senator Graham was the American people's workhorse. So I thought that was nice. That was quick. I know we had mentioned that this was a possibility last week. Now his successor and younger sister, Darlene Graham Norton, also attended the ceremony, which took place one day before a special Republican Senate primary in which she will face 9 other opponents. So she is, that's today. My goodness. What an honor for my brother, Norton said, and what a tribute to his 33 years of service. Lindsey loved the Air Force. He loved its mission. He loved wearing the uniform of his country. His interest in foreign affairs and national security started with his service in the Air Force. The Joint Base covers 24,000 acres and boasts one of the largest naval weapons stations on the East Coast. So I wanted to pass that along to you. Did you hear? Oh my goodness, look at all these waves coming in. Good morning, Frank. Have a wonderful day. Well, thank you. You have a wonderful day as well. And good morning to you. Good morning to all. It was reported yesterday that President Trump was secretly whisked off Air Force One in an airport catering truck last month and departed Turkey on a separate military flight in response to that threat from Iran, that credible threat from Iran. The secret mission, reported by the Washington Post yesterday, left journalists and even White House staff believing that they were on the same plane as the president when they departed the annual NATO summit on July 8th. But really, they served as a decoy while Trump traveled in a smaller Air Force C-32A. The elaborate ruse saw Trump publicly board an older model of Air Force One before being smuggled out in a catering truck that had been lifted up to a door on the opposite side of the entrance to the presidential plane. Trump was accompanied by several aides inside the container, which was lowered onto a truck on the tarmac and driven to the nearby Air Force C-32A plane, where the vessel was once again elevated up to a door, apparently allowing Trump and his aides to board the alternative plane. Like the older model presidential plane, the C-32A was also blue and white and emblazoned with the words, "The United States of America." War Secretary Pete Hegseth was on the secret flight with Trump, but boarded separately using external stairs in an attempt to make the flight appear typical. After departing, they landed at Mildenhall Air Force Base in the United Kingdom. The plane arrived about 9 minutes before reporters and White House staff aboard Air Force One landed at the same base. Television cameras and media reports note Trump descended the external stairs from Air Force One about 25 minutes after the plane landed. It's unclear how the president moved from the C-32A to the other plane. I'm not sure if this is coming from a leak, if this is something that was okay to expose. Now, the secret operation was set in motion due to a credible Iranian threat against Trump's life, according to a U.S. official who spoke with anonymity to the Washington Post. Several outlets reported last month that intelligence officials flagged a special threat against the president, triggering the plane switch. So there you are in a statement. Stephen Chung said the new Air Force One is state-of-the-art aircraft that has been fitted with high-level security protocols and ensure the safety of the president and his staff. As the president has said recently, there are many enemies of America who have their sights on him, and we use every tool at our disposal to address those threats. Now, Trump responded yesterday to Iran's outlandish demands to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, saying, "I see the representatives of the Islamic Republic of Iran are asking for compensation for the damage done to them during the last 5-month military conflict. Started because they will not have a nuclear weapon, even though it was never mentioned in any of our negotiations or meetings. But it is an interesting idea because now I am likewise demanding compensation from Iran for all the people they have killed and gravely wounded with their roadside bombs and many conflicts for which they are famous, as led initially by General Soleimani, including the families of those killed on the USS Cole and thousands of others killed in combat. Additionally, compensation should be paid to the families of the hundreds of thousands of innocent protesters that Iran has killed over the last 50 years, not to mention the 52,000 that have been killed in the last 5 months. I've instructed my representatives to put this firmly into any and all future negotiations." Wow. Okay. There you are. Now they're claiming, and take this with a grain of salt because it's a political reporter, but I think it's on the Daily Mail out of the United Kingdom. And they're reporting that, number one, that Iranian cash demand outraged Trump. I get that. But in what we're learning, U.S. intelligence officials believe that the Iranian regime employed hackers to hit a water utility in western Arkansas as part of the wider campaign. Suspected Iran-linked cyber attacks have also struck water systems in a dozen states, including Michigan, Minnesota, Georgia, New Jersey, and South Dakota. That's what sources told CBS News, with more than 30 community systems breached in Minnesota alone. So they're now putting that on Iran. There was questions about that from the very beginning, but now it looks as if at least you trust anonymous sources. That's where we're at. Now, we're not going to talk about Iran all morning, but I do have one last thing on this. Iran's misery index hit a record high of 91.1% due to the rampant inflation and unemployment. With the economic strain likely to get worse under the U.S. naval blockade, the country's misery index, which is calculated by adding the point-to-point inflation rate, 82%, with the unemployment rate, 9.1%, hit its highest level yet this year, according to a recent report. The misery index spike is notably more than double that it was last spring, with not even Tehran spared from the economic blow, as the city's own index hit 78.3%. Commodities have soared. Their currency, the value of Iran's currency has fallen to 185,000 rials. I don't know if I'm saying that right, to the U.S. dollar, a drop of about 20% since the start of the war. A Treasury Department spokesperson told the New York Post, economic fury has left the regime desperate for cash. Iran's economy is in free fall, inflation has skyrocketed, and as President Trump said on Sunday, the regime's ability to pay its troops has been decimated. Iran's financial lifeline has been cut by the U.S. blockade, and the economy will remain in a very depressed state unless it can secure concessions, according to William Jackson, a chief emerging markets economist. But whether this happens ultimately comes down to the degree of economic pain that the Iranian regime is willing to bear to achieve its military and geopolitical objectives. And of course, we know that they don't care about their people suffering. But this is when you can start to see maybe that regime change, where you can see an uprising. If anything, Iran's economy may be less well placed to cope with a U.S. blockade now than it was at the start of the first blockade in April. So there is your Iran updates. Okay. Got a couple questions for you. Have you been following? I know when we first kicked off the broadcast 3 years ago, this was kind of the hot topic. We haven't talked too much about it, but I know we have a lot of Bills fans in the audience. Your thoughts on the new stadium? We're going to talk about that when we come back. There's been some criticism. This is going to lead into just some general conversations about some updates, some things about Fauci. A lot here because there's so many primaries today. There's a lot here in regards to the Democrat Socialists of America. You have Joe Scarborough, a former Clinton advisor, a few other people speaking out about this rise of socialists in the Democrat Party. We'll talk about that. But keep those waves. You guys are busy this morning. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We'll see more clouds than sun overall today with a high of 82, right on track with daily average in the region, a range of 77 to 83. And we're starting to trend drier as well. Overnight, mostly cloudy skies, maybe some fog sitting up in the early morning in the upper 50s for low temperatures. Then back with a high around 83 for our Wednesday. Isolated showers Thursday. Then we wait till
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Mark writes in, Congress is going on another recess. So I did some research. On average, a congressperson only works 190 days a year out of 365. What a peachy job. No wonder they don't get much done. All right, I'm going to tell you what the argument is, Mark. If you asked a congressperson about that, the argument would be that that's when they're in Washington, the 190 days, but they're always working with their constituents back home. Now, whether or not you accept that, I'm just telling you that would be the argument. So when they have in-district days, which that would be what this is, this recess, it would be, especially this time of year, start to campaign and start to have meetings and start to meet with your constituents and commit constituent services. So their argument would be that those are the most important days when they're actually out of Washington. Just saying. Okay, for all our Bills fans out there, what do you think about the new stadium? Fans paid thousands of dollars to renew their season tickets for the upcoming season with the promise of glitz that comes with it, according to New York Post. The problem is some fans are dealing with obstructions blocking views of the full field. Fans have been irritated by stair railings and glass attached to them, which appear to be at least 3 feet tall. One fan, Melissa Robluski, said she was assured that her new season tickets would be free of obstruction, though railings are in her way. We asked if they were going to do an obstruction multiple times because it was a concern. We were told that the image was just a rendering and there would be no obstruction. Now, front row seats, even in the upper sections, had personal seat licenses fees starting in the low 4 figures. Others were forced to give up their old seats entirely thanks to rising costs that are 500% higher than before when they played at their old stadium. Kevin Kruger, a fan, said my previous season tickets in the last stadium were in a lower section and were more expensive, and they first tried to sell me my old seats, which would have cost $5,000 per seat for the personal seat license and $2,500 per seat for the season. So my starting cost to be a season ticket holder in my old seats would be $15,000. And they go through and interview individual people that have been dealing with this. I'm sure you've seen it online as well. Now, the Buffalo Bills responded saying, thank you to Bills Mafia for setting a new attendance record with more than 50,000 fans at the return of the blue and red. Saturday's practice was a great opportunity to test the new stadium. We are currently addressing internal and external feedback regarding the facility's operations following the first event. We'll utilize the next 6 weeks to refine any details as we prepare for the home opener on Thursday, September 17th. So not much of a response. Now, Bills COO Pete Goelli said the team only heard from less than 1% of PSL holders about anything sightline related. Any building you would walk into, there would be some obstructed seating. There are seats where we could create a different design, put it in a blank area, or they give you the option to put in a seat that might be obstructed for football, but can be used for any other event like a concert. There's always partial view or limited view seats, and we think those were pretty clearly depicted in our virtual venue. Now, the team's front office also expressed the belief that some of the photos that spread like wildfire online were misleading or were showing seats that wouldn't be sold for an NFL game. Now, according to the New York Post, because remember, one of the frustrations that people have, not just to mention if you want to be season ticket holders, is how much tax dollars went to this new stadium, and then the common guy can't afford to take his family to a game. Well, Governor Hochul's new Buffalo Stadium opened with a splat last weekend, said the Post, as irate fans discovered a plethora of obstructed views, among other woes. As you may recall, making taxpayers fork over $850 million for Highmark Stadium was Hochul's top priority in her very first budget back in 2022, months after she replaced Cuomo. To get the legislature to okay the plan, $600 million in state funds plus $250 million from the taxpayers of basically broke Erie County. The government went along with upping total spending by $4 billion, though maybe she didn't mind much as she'd go along with far worse in the years that followed. Minimal renewal of mayoral control of New York City's public school system, plus a few poison pills that reduced the control. Far less than needed fixes to the no bail law and other 2019 criminal justice reforms. She then came back for more changes year after year after year, even as she signed on to other reforms that also speed perps' exits from prison. Of course, the governor insists to you that she's a huge Bills fan. And I know I've been talking about this a lot lately, but the awkwardness of her not being able to start that Bills chant at the opening of the stadium. I mean, I think if we yelled on Market Street now trying to get a Bills chant, it would happen. She skipped the team's conference championship playoff game in 2024, though. That should be noted. Why? A fundraiser in Manhattan. Well over 2 years before her next election. Florida-based billionaire Bills owner Terry Pagula and his wife this year donated $176,000, the legal maximum, to the governor's re-election bid. $18,000 each to her campaign, $138,000 to the state party. Plus, the stadium giveaway was another hochul move that seemed to benefit her husband's lawyer-lobbyist career. Now add this irony. Taxpayers covered up nearly 40% of the cost of the stadium, whose design looks like government work, with bizarre balconies, strange stairways, and ridiculous railings blocking view of the field. Not to mention the bathrooms accessible only from the bottom of seating tiers. Oh my goodness. Bills fans, every time you miss a play because you can't see a quarter of the field or had to stop to breathe on the way back from recycling a beer, remind yourself, this is the house that Cat built. I thought that was fair. All right, we're going to move on from that, but I see we got some comments on. Yes, please keep weighing in. Some of you may have even attended the practice. Your thoughts on the new stadium, your thoughts on your tax dollars going to that said stadium that doesn't seem to have the fans in mind. We'll talk about it when we return. But I got to take a short break. Then we've got a few things here on Fauci. As I mentioned, in the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to have the authors of Presidentess, the life of First Lady Julia Tyler. Some interesting stories there. I do think you're going to find it kind of intriguing. I hope you do. That's in the 7 o'clock hour. We're going to have some guests later on in the week. We are, I believe, if my schedule plays out like I'm hoping, tomorrow will be a day where you and I can just catch up because we have just been swamped with guests. That's a great thing. Every once in a while, it's really nice to catch up and have a little more time together to talk. So keep those waves, keep those text messages coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Give kids time. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
When I was in law school, my father had to stop working when he developed early Alzheimer's. Social Security disability benefits saved my parents financially. I'm Peter Gorton of Lockman & Gorton. Now I'm a lawyer who helps people when they need Social Security disability. If you can't work, I'd like to help.
For a free consultation, call Lockman & Gorton toll-free 1-800-698-0567. Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Small businesses are the heart of America. Like you, these entrepreneurs started out with a dream and the drive to build a better life. If you have a small business idea to grow or challenge to face, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1964, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses. Today, they are the nation's largest nonprofit source of expert mentoring, resources, and education. Whether you're starting out, building back, or have worked at it for years, SCORE will match you with specialized mentors. Our thousands of volunteers provide the guidance and connections you need for free. Your success is waiting. SCORE is ready to help. Find a mentor today at SCORE.org.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Some comments from viewers. Mark writes in, as far as the Bills Stadium, I don't think it should have come out of our pockets to build it. And the outrageous prices are over the top. That's a very fair point. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you. The new Buffalo Bills Stadium wasn't built with their fans in mind. The average families will not be able to afford to attend a game. And you sent that in before I said kind of similar, so I'm sorry I beat you to the punch on that, but you're exactly right. I mean, will not be able to afford the tickets to the game, especially not season tickets. And just like you said, it seems, I have not attended, but it seems to me that it was not built in a way to make it easier for fans. That's for sure. So we can continue to talk about that. Now, Mark had mentioned earlier, President Trump said Monday that measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine could be quite lethal, as he urged the three to be administered separately to reduce what he said could be an elevated risk of autism. Trump made the recommendations while signing an executive order in the Oval Office alongside Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to affirm the court-paused CDC recommendation of 11 childhood vaccines down from 17. Effective immediately, my administration is recognizing gold standard childhood vaccine recommendations for only 11 core vaccinations against the most serious and dangerous diseases, along with the MMR, which hopefully will be split up. The MMR we wanted in 3 separate vaccinations, given at separate times. Together, there could be a possibility they're quite lethal, and separately, it looks like they are not at all lethal, but just very effective. So the MMR, we want to have separate visits, separate times. He described the vaccination as the size of a bottle of soda poured into a little child's body, and bad things happen in too many cases. Parents can still choose to give their children all the vaccinations if they wish. There are some groups that have virtually no problem with autism. And I know, I have to say this, those groups that aren't big in the world of vaccines. Trump softened his tone on the MMR vaccination when a reporter asked if he was aware of evidence that it could harm children, a claim health regulators have long denied. No, what I've heard is that there are some people that they say is this way. And I say, well, let's say there's a 5% chance of it. Let's split it up. But I've heard when you put it together, they can be explosive. Now, he told a different reporter that he split up the vaccinations for his own children. I did. I took my children to 5 different vaccinations. In other words, I broke it up. It's inconvenient. It's 5 stops, but it's something that I think will have a huge impact on autism. Kennedy, a longtime vaccine safety skeptic, said we're only noticing it in kids who were born around 1989 or after. The older generations are not seeing those increases. So something happened in the mid-90s that changed our children. And it has to be an environmental exposure. You need an environmental toxin. Now, not everyone was on board with this change. Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, said, I'm a doctor. This executive order is wrong. Now, keep in mind, Cassidy lost his re-election bid after Trump backed his primary challenger. The president does not have the expertise to make these changes. Vaccines are overwhelmingly safe. Vaccines are effective. Vaccines do not cause autism. Now, President Trump said that medical and pharmaceutical groups could be the reason that the establishment media refused to ask questions about the vaccines. And I think this is a fair point because there is such a pushback when you have the conversation on this. Why is there such a pushback? It seems like it'd be something we'd all want to just understand better, right? It's amazing. When you come up with a recommendation for a vaccine, it could be the medical groups, the pharmaceutical groups, I don't know, but it's amazing. There's nothing that we lose with this. If the worst thing that would happen would be nothing happens, we're not going to lose anything. At the same time, we could save hundreds of thousands of lives, millions of lives. And I wish that could have been done a long time ago. He said he believes the revised childhood vaccine schedule will yield tremendous results. We got stopped by court. We had a court, I guess, in Massachusetts that stopped us very early on. I've believed in this for a very long time now. So we're getting it done, and I think we're going to see potentially tremendous results. So again, it's amazing that the establishment media refuses to ask questions about vaccines, because that's the question he was asked at the press conference. Breitbart News asked him why the establishment media so often refuses to even ask questions. He said it's amazing. When you come up with a recommendation for vaccine, it could be the medical groups, the pharmaceutical groups, I don't know, but it is amazing. There's nothing that we lose with this. All right. Now, this ties in because when you think of vaccines, you think of Dr. Fauci. Did you see, and this is why, remember when they were lecturing us about believe the science. And who was science? It was Dr. Fauci. Well, Fauci privately raised concerns that the COVID-19 vaccine could theoretically be linked to miscarriages in expectant mothers, despite having publicly insisted there were no red flags for pregnant women. I asked around a bit more, and another issue came up that you need to be aware of, wrote Fauci in a text exchange with then Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. Since many people have significant cytokines storm and fever after the second dose, this theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. They've been discussing whether the vaccine posed any risk to women who followed the two-shot regimen early or later on in their pregnancies. Walensky responded to Fauci that the first trimester issue he raised were definitely a good point, especially after after dose 2. Days later, on February 3rd, Fauci said during a question and answer live stream with the Journal of the American Medical Association that the FDA found thus far, and we have to be careful, but thus far no red flags about pregnant women. Months later, the Biden White House chief medical advisor also said tens and tens and tens of thousands of women who've been followed by the CDC who've been vaccinated when they were pregnant. There's no indication whatsoever that there's any increase of any adverse issues in a pregnant woman who is vaccinated compared to a pregnant woman who wasn't vaccinated. It's pretty clear that pregnant women should get vaccinated. So just this lying back and forth. Now, this was taken from more than 34,000 text messages and 522 voicemails. How did your voicemail? I mean, maybe they can go back and find them, because there's no way mine's holding 522 voicemails. I think I have 5, and it's always telling me to delete them. According to Republican senators, just 3 contacts are listed in that phone, but it's too early to determine whether any data has been deleted. Now, according to, and this is coming from Fox News, they were the first to get it, but a Senate Republican leading the charge on investigating Dr. Fauci's old government phone told Fox News Digital that the revelation that the former COVID czar was concerned that vaccine could cause miscarriage was just the tip of the iceberg. This is Senator Ron Johnson in an interview again with Fox News Digital. He alleged that the first group of texts from Fauci's old government iPhone was a clear sign that the man who became the face of the nation's COVID-19 response said one thing privately while taking a very different message to the public. Quote, "We tell pregnant women don't even have a glass of wine, and yet we coerce them, convince them, sometimes mandate them to get an experimental gene therapy as early as the first trimester. This is truly sick." And the way that this has been, I've known about this for years, but finally, because we have a text associated with Saint Fauci, is finally getting the play in the media that's been deserving for years. I would argue with him at that point. I don't think it is getting the play. Now, I know CNN put out it was actually Stephen Collinson, we talked about it last week, where he was critical of Fauci and said that Fauci, by using the Fifth Amendment, giving his, or how do I want to word it? Why am I wording this so strange? By pleading the Fifth, is that how you say it? That invoking his Fifth Amendment rights. There we go. I think that's how you do it. By doing that, they said, well, he's hurt his legacy. He is definitely kind of a stain on his reputation. But they've done that one, and then it'll be off. They're not going to keep reporting on Dr. Fauci because, remember, they made him a hero during all this. I mean, he was, and that's why I like what Johnson is saying. He was a saint. And again, I don't have to read the quotes again. But again, what he said publicly is not what he was saying privately, and we've had this be a quite consistent thing, whether it's from his diaries, and now we're learning more about his phone. This is going to take time, but when my staff saw this, I mean, to me, this immediately impacts public safety, immediately impacts informed consent, Senator Johnson said, and so I had to get this one out there right away. But there are, I'm sure, way more to come. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. So there you are. A couple things. I don't want to talk too much more about Fauci, but where Representative Johnson and I disagree is that I don't think the media is going to continue to cover this. I think they've done their quote-unquote due diligence in their mind. But Johnson did say, quite honestly, he's the only guy that can answer some of these questions. So we'll give him another opportunity. We've invited him. His attorneys have contacted us. If they don't set that up voluntarily, I will subpoena him. But what's the point if he's going to continue to just use the fifth? What was it, 111 times? So there you are. But you could continue to comment on this. We're moving along quickly on a lot of different topics. So be a part of it. I want to hear from you. I see some comments coming in now. How am I doing on time? Well, invoked the Fifth Amendment. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, invoked the Fifth Amendment. I got a little tongue twisted at the beginning. Okay. When we return, we're going to talk. Oh, man, we got so much here about we got a couple things here about Republicans. We got a couple things here. A lot here about the rise of Democrat Socialists of America. The media is not really reporting on the ongoing civil war in the Democrat Party, but we're going to mention it. But because today sees another example of the DSA taking on the establishment. That's in Wisconsin and Minnesota today. Progressive candidates in Wisconsin and Minnesota make final pushes. We're going to talk about that as well. All right. Let's take a break. I don't want to run too late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Every job has a moment where it could slow down or it could keep moving. At D&L Supply and Rental, we focus on what actually matters, keeping your momentum. From emergency rentals to weekend projects, we make it easy, we make it fast, we make it right. Less downtime, because our team knows the job, has what you need, and gets it to you even on Saturdays. D&L, built for momentum.
Looking for a meaningful day trip close to home? Visit the historic Elmira Prison Camp, one of the most significant Civil War sites in the North. Walk the grounds, stand where history happened, discover powerful stories of courage, sacrifice, and survival that shaped our nation. Whether you're a history enthusiast, a family looking to learn together, or simply exploring the Finger Lakes region, we offer an experience you won't forget. Plan your visit today at elmiracivilwar.org. Preserve, discover, remember.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We'll see more clouds than sun overall today with a high of 82, right on track with daily average in the region, a range of 77 to 83. And we're starting to trend drier as well. Overnight, mostly cloudy skies, maybe some fog sitting up in the early morning, in the upper 50s for low temperatures, then back with a high around 83 for our Wednesday. Isolated showers Thursday, then we wait till Sunday for rain chances.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Some comments from viewers. How can two people who don't know anything about vaccines make decisions? I did pharmaceuticals for 40 years, and I can say they know nothing. And I'm assuming you're referencing President Trump and the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services Director Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's the reason why. Their titles. I mean, yeah, that's the reason. Comment from a different viewer. There is no reporting on the core facts of why HHS is reducing the number of childhood vaccines. Most vaccines contain adjuvants that stimulate the immune system, so the vaccine, quote, takes. There's virtually no studies on the health effects of stacking multiple vaccines, all with adjuvants, all at once. How we got to the present overstuffed vaccine schedule for kids has been irresponsible. Vaccines are good, but how they are administered can create risk. This was a rational decision. Thank you very much. And then what's great about Frankly Speaking, we get all sides here. This is interesting. I'm not sure if you'll see this reported a lot of places, but Peter Navarro says on May 16th, 2017, the FBI took one of the most extraordinary steps in its history. It opened a full investigation of the sitting American president. Newly declassified documents released by the White House say the Bureau asked whether the president, quote, is or was directed by, controlled by, and or coordinated activities with Vladimir Putin's Russia, and whether he obstructed or conspired to obstruct the FBI's own investigation. That the FBI had targeted President Trump was reported in 2019. What was missing was the paperwork. The opening document, the names on it, the chain of command. The May 16th opening communication lists FBI General Counsel James Baker and Counterintelligence Division Assistant Director E.W. Bill Prystap as the approving officers. The investigation was opened at Prystap's direction in consultation with Baker's Office of General Counsel, and acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe personally notified Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. The next day, May 17th, Rosenstein appointed Robert Mueller special counsel, and the Russia hoax took flight. James Comey figures into the hoax too, of course. He went from fired FBI director to a central witness. The FBI used Comey's account of his talks with Trump and Trump's firing of Comey to support the obstruction theory. Another critical layer has now been exposed. The FBI says it's predicated the probe on predetermined criteria established by the Crossfire Hurricane investigative team based on an assessment of supposedly reliable lead information. Who built that predicate? Peter Strzok, remember that name? A central figure in Crossfire Hurricane, and FBI lawyer Lisa Page were close to the investigation. When Page asked whether Trump would become president, Strzok replied, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Remember that? Boy, this is a blast from the past. I just wanted to pass it along to you really quickly. Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz later said that message was not merely indicative of a biased state of mind, but implied a willingness to take official action to affect a candidate's electoral prospects. See, those were those two lovers having an affair, if I recall correctly. It's been a while. But that was a prime example of the deep state saying, no, we know better than what the American people want. Who cares who they voted for? We have the final say, a nameless, faceless bureaucrat. Yet the actual drafter of the opening communication remains redacted. The name should be released. So should the names of everyone who formulated, reviewed, or supplied the, quote, reliable lead information used to put a sitting president under investigation, along with the communications among Prystap, Baker, McCabe, and the investigative team. McCabe's record of what he told Rosenstein, what Rosenstein knew before he appointed Mueller, and what Mueller did, if anything, to independently validate the extraordinary allegations he was tasked to investigate. Here is the startling contradiction. Horowitz concluded the FBI had enough, under its relatively low investigative threshold, to open Crossfire Hurricane in July of 2016. But that investigation targeted 4 Trump campaign associates: George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and Michael Flynn. The newly declassified documents reveal a far graver step 10 months later: a full investigation of whether the sitting president himself was directed by, controlled by, or coordinated with Russia. What evidence justified that extraordinary escalation? That question is especially urgent given that Horowitz later uncovered 17 significant inaccuracies and omissions in the 4 FISA applications targeting Carter Page. Those defects made the case for probable cause look stronger than it was. The FISA Corps itself said it understood the government to have concluded that 2 surveillance authorizations were not valid. We know how the hoax ended. Mueller's investigation, his report concluded, did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government, nor did it substantiate the explosive claim that President Trump was directed or controlled by Russia. It's past time to put those who built and ran this Russia hoax under the microscope, or, again, they'll never learn. This should have been a message to the nameless, faceless bureaucrats who thought that they were more powerful than the President of the United States. Senator Chuck Grassley, Senate Judiciary Committee, and Chairman Jim Jordan's House Judiciary Committee hold the tools. Grassley has been a bulldog. Jordan far less so. Subpoena Prystap, Baker, McCabe, Rosenstein, and Comey for sworn public testimony. Strzok and Page sat inside Crossfire Hurricane and should account for how the investigative predicate developed. Get down to the working agent levels. Stephen Soma, the Case 1 Agent 1, faulted for the Carter-Page FISA errors, along with the FBI's Joseph Pinka, and above all, Walter Girardian, could reveal the hoax's inner workings. FBI whistleblowers allege Giardina, who was also involved in prosecuting Peter Navarro, who wrote this piece, was an initial recipient of the Steele dossier, falsely represented that had been corroborated, and later wiped the laptop assigned to him while working for Mueller, apparently violating established record preservation procedures. Huge red flag. The official who set the Russian hoax in motion and carried it forward have names. Now put them under oath and do it before the November election. I thought that was a good point, something that kind of has been off the radar for a while, but I wanted to give you an update. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit about the Democrat Party. I do have one, and it's just maybe even to get your blood boiling this morning. But there's we talked about it so much last week, I don't really even want to bring it up. But Tucker Carlson. Remember, there was speculation that he might run for president. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson. But we'll talk about him just quickly. Then we have to get into the Democrat Party. A couple of New York State things. I see the Democrat Party is suing Bruce Blakeman because he uses AI, artificial intelligence, in some of his campaign ads. You might have seen them online with cartoons and the like. So they've got to be scared. Between that and the matching funds, and the list keeps adding up, they seem to be concerned about Bruce Blakeman. A lot more than they want you to believe. I mean, they wanted to say, oh, the polls are, it's all over by the shouting. And why are you going down these petty routes? But we can talk about that. I see some comments coming in. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Come celebrate the 207th Steuben County Fair from Monday, August 17th through Sunday, August 23rd. Wednesday, August 19th is Broken Bee Rodeo starting at 7 p.m. And there's more. Demolition derbies, monster truck show, games, rides, fun for the whole family. For tickets and information, visit SteubenCountyFair.org. Experience the Steuben County Fair from August 17th through the 23rd.
The best nail salon?
Ask Google. The best sub shop? Ask Google.
The best Jeep dealer?
Ask Google. We did. Google reviews from customers rank Ferrario Jeep in Elmira the highest Jeep dealer in our area.
If you don't see me, I can't save you any money.
Check out the new Jeeps during our Make This the Summer event.
Visit Ferrario Jeep in Elmira or FerrarioElmira.com.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from Steve, who says, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Steve. It is amazing how when minimum wage was $2.35 an hour or $4.35 an hour, only one person in the household had to work for the family to survive. And now look at today's day and age. Obesity wasn't a thing. Homelessness wasn't a thing. People need to ask who has helped to create all the adversity that we have to face in our lives today. I literally cringe at the future of our society, especially ours, because it is trying to be torn apart to begin with. Those that are of power will never feel what is actually needed, and even for them to exist. The saying used to be that the world still needs ditch diggers. Just remember that every time you hear the minimum wage needs to go up, your paycheck actually gets smaller because the cost of everything goes up. We will never feel how good the economy actually is because no one wants to be in New York State. Wait till the Amazon warehouse gets built and ends up closing down just like the other corporations that have been opened around here. But the quality of workers doesn't meet the needs of what it takes to run a large, intricate corporation in this area. Many have already tried and closed. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate that. Okay. Tucker Carlson. Okay, so the speculation was last week that he's going to run for president. Well, a person close to Tucker said, I think journalists are all suffering from traumatic brain injuries as they forgot the wave of Tucker 2024 stories. He wasn't running then, and he's not running now. Tucker is interesting and says irreverent things, and some people would like him to run, but he's never like, I'm running, the person said. President Trump, who also was once viewed as an unlikely political contender, was saying he was running for president and people weren't taking him seriously. They're almost not taking seriously Tucker's denial that he's not running for president. It's the opposite. Now, of course, he likes the attention. He released his 10-point plan. I'm not going to go through any more of that. That was just an update from last week. So if someone close to him says it's not happening. All right. Do we have to take another break already? We do have a lot here about, did you see that the judge ordered a stoppage, at least temporarily, for the second house tax of Mamdani? We do have a couple of quick things here about Mayor Mamdani, but nothing, it's more about the party overall, the Democrat Party overall, and this push towards socialism. Tonight is a big storyline as progressive candidates. I know they say progressive. Democrat Socialist of America candidates are running against the establishment. That is tonight. We'll talk a little bit about that when we return. As I had mentioned, a little bit later on, we're going to be talking with the authors of the new book, Presidentes, The Life of First Lady Julia Gardner Tyler. I know we have a lot of history buffs out there, and there's really kind of some interesting stories here that I do believe that you're going to like. So that's in the 7 o'clock hour. Make sure you stay with us the whole time. When we come back, we're also going to talk about, remember AOC, when they're calling her out on some of the more woke things. She said, that's woke 0.1. It's all changed now. Woke 1. We're in a different place now. We went a little overboard at first. I don't think they still very much believe what they were saying at the time, like abandoning Thanksgiving. Very much believe that. Just they want to cover it up because AOC wants to run for president. We'll talk about that and much more. Getting ready to wrap up hour number 1. Get your comments and your questions in.
When it comes to home improvement, Horseheads Do-It Center has you covered. Family owned, locally trusted, and packed with everything you need for any project. From top quality tools to kitchen and bath essentials, we make it easy. Competitive prices, expert advice, friendly service. Visit us at 124 North Main Street or online at doitbest.com/horseheads today.
I just love coming in after they've been here and seeing everything clean and tidy. It's such a good way to start the week.
Sometimes I wonder if they are magic.
I feel like it's the details that is everything. Being able to pick up on things that most people don't see or don't even think about.
House, business, or anything else, go with Magic Rags. The Enchanted Crew has you covered from ceiling to floor.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We'll see more clouds than sun overall today with a high of 82, right on track with daily average in the region, a range of 77 to 83. And we're starting to trend drier as well overnight. Mostly cloudy skies, maybe some fog sitting up in the early morning in the upper 50s for low temperatures. Then back with a high around 83 for our Wednesday. Isolated showers Thursday. Then we wait till
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from Mark this morning. He says, I enjoy the Bruce Blakeman ads. They speak the truth. People leaving New York State and overwhelming utility bills and outrageous taxes. And is it illegal to use AI in political ads? Yes, if I'm not mistaken, I have it right here, Mark. Governor Hochul signed something. By the way, Blakeman was campaigning with Trump in Nassau County yesterday. But yes, if I'm not mistaken, Governor Hochul had signed into law that you can't use AI. So the state Democratic Party is asking the State Board of Elections to take action against Republican gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman's use of generative artificial intelligence in his campaign materials. In a letter to the Board of Election, officials shared exclusively with the outlet City and State, State Democrat Party Chair Jay Jacobs alleged the Blakeman campaign is violating election law through his use of AI. Blakeman has frequently used AI to create campaign videos and social media content. According to state law, updated roughly 2 years ago through a provision in the state budget, materially deceptive media made with AI requires a disclosure. Blakeman has often not included the required disclosure. Quote, it has been reported that a myriad of Blakeman-generated ads rely on artificial intelligence to distort reality, specifically using Governor Hochul's image, but manipulating it to say and do things that she has not. According to the media, there is no consistency in whether the Blakeman campaign includes a mandated disclaimer for the computer-generated communications. Jacobs argues in the letter that in addition to Blakeman's lack of disclosure, the Nassau County Executive's campaign may also be misusing public matching funds to pay for AI materials that run afoul of election law. Also, they're trying to take away the matching funds again. Remember, matching funds were the Democrats' idea to make sure that the little guy can take on the incumbent. So when the little guy goes to take on the incumbent, they attack him at every turn. The State Board of Elections cannot permit a campaign to repeatedly flout the election law, and it certainly cannot permit that campaign to pull down public matching funds in furtherance of this subversion. The board and the Public Campaign Finance Board should take all steps to ensure that the disclaimer obligations are applied consistently and that state dollars are not being used by campaigns. Okay. Yeah, it was signed into law by Kathy Hochul a while ago. I was hoping they had a quote here from, because it was Mom Donnie used it, right? I didn't see any criticism of him. Anyway, enough on that. All right, that does it for our number one of Frankly Speaking. Boy, that went quick, didn't it? When we return, we're going to talk about the Democrat Party and the push towards the left. We also have a few things here about New York City that are worth mentioning. Yeah, but Blakeman was campaigning with Donald Trump in Nassau yesterday. Hochul, of course, attacking him for it. But President Trump visited Nassau County. Or will. I thought he already did, but it may be will. It may be later this week. The trip will include a visit to a police training facility, a stop that is clearly meant to telegraph a tough-on-crime message New York Republicans have been eager to stress. This is coming from Politico, so very biased, but take it with a grain of salt. The trip would also potentially be the same day local governments, including Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman's, are required to submit plans to the state for unwinding their formal cooperative agreements with ICE. Blakeman said in a statement, I am grateful that President Trump is coming to Nassau County to tour our outstanding state-of-the-art law enforcement facility and pay tribute to the men and women of our police department, sheriff's department, probation department, and our firefighters for the outstanding efforts to protect our county, state, and country. Now we know that he's vowed to fight that not being able to work with ICE. Just so you know, just to end the hour, we'll quote Hochul's campaign spokesperson. Donald Trump and Bruce Blakeman, literally campaigning side by side this week, are showing New Yorkers what this race is all about. A governor who's protecting our health care, investing billions in public safety, and standing up to Trump's endless attacks, or a MAGA fanboy who'd rather be at Mar-a-Lago right now. She tries. Her people try. All right. Wrapping up hour number one. Hour number two, moments away. Stay with us.
When it comes to fun, it's what we do. See Jefferson Starship take the stage with hits like Jane and many more. Tickets are just $20, and all sales benefit the Southern Tier Veteran Support Group. Tioga Downs Casino Resort. Fun is what we do.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
William isn't like other other attorneys. He eats, breathes, and dreams about car crashes.
He's too fast. He's going too fast.
I knew it.
Way too fast for the conditions.
Shh.
You're fixing this? This should be totaled.
Boss, that guy is here again.
Lazy Road. Head on. 2 million. No question.
And one more thing William Lattar does. He wins. Hurt in a car? Call William Lattar.
When it's to fun, it's what we do. See Jefferson Starship take the stage with hits like Jane and many more. Tickets are just $20, and all sales benefit the Southern Tier Veteran Support Group. Tioga Downs Casino Resort.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Yes, I realize it is the top of the hour, so I normally do my intro. Hold on, let's do our music. I got distracted. And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We've got a lot to cover. Today is another primary progressive candidates. They don't want to call them Democrat Socialists of America. This is the AP. The progressive candidates for governor in Wisconsin and U.S. Senate in Minnesota are making their final pushes ahead of today's election, increasing the pressure on a Democrat establishment that has spent the year on its heels. The primaries come a week after Abdul al-Saad narrowly defeated Representative Hallie Stevens in Michigan's divisive and costly U.S. Senate primary. Al-Saad's victory has energized the left while stoking fears among Democrat Party leaders that the shift to the left, particularly in battleground states like Michigan and Wisconsin, will make it more difficult to win in November. In Wisconsin, Democrat socialist Francesca Hong, she's the one that does not like Thanksgiving. She is trying to win a 4-way Democrat primary for governor, where her top opponent has been endorsed by popular Governor Tony Evers, who isn't seeking a third term. It's going to be an interesting one because Bernie Sanders wouldn't even come out and, his argument was, oh, I haven't been paying attention to that race. He's endorsed from mayor on up, and this is the one where he drew the line. Little interesting. Now it says, and take it with a grain of salt, the Associated Press, Republicans are putting money behind Hong, thinking she will be the better matchup for Republican U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany in November. The Republican Governors Association has spent nearly $3.6 million through its Right Directions Wisconsin PAC on ads contrasting Hong with President Trump and playing up her liberal policies. Crowley and other Democrats argue the ads are meant to bolster Hong's standing in the primary because Republicans see her as the easier opponent. All right. Now, Joe Scarborough, just like with Tucker Carlson, I think they're two very similar people, if I'm being honest. Tucker Carlson and, in my opinion, Joe Scarborough have always looked out for number one, have always looked out to make sure they're the best suited. If you look at it with Scarborough, he was a Republican when he ran for office, then he was independent, now he's a Democrat. But anyway, Scarborough went on a rant against Democrats, shouting that party leaders were permitting the most controversial voices to gain prominence because they're, quote, too woke to call out the obvious. He ran a clip of AOC in which she when was pressed about her decision not to endorse Francesca Hong, a Democrat socialist candidate in the Wisconsin gubernatorial race who once called for abolishing the police, prisons, and even Thanksgiving. AOC evaded the question while rambling that Hong had moved away from many of those old positions. She then said a New York City councilman has a great line for it called "Woke One was crazy." Scarborough ripped the Congresswoman's dismissive response, arguing that there's no great conspiracy behind renewed criticism of the Democrat Socialists of America. The host praised Mamdani as someone who's proven to be, I think, extremely pragmatic in many ways, while also calling out his high approval rating, the lowest murder rate on record, and a thriving economy. But you also have DSA people in New York City that have been saying some whacked out things. I think most mainstream voters would say they're whacked out things. When they're talking about going to pro-Hamas rallies the day after Hamas slaughtered more Jews than on any day since the Holocaust, I think 90% of Americans would think that is abhorrent. And so, again, they're trying to blur the lines. Oh, well, they just don't support health care for all. No, we're not saying that. We just don't support hate speech. He then turned to the 2024 election, noting that Democrats failed to comfort culturally divisive issues that Republicans were able to weaponize successfully against former candidate Kamala Harris. You couldn't watch an NFL game without seeing 300 taxpayers are going to pay for trans surgeries for convict ads. But please, I don't need people telling me, oh, you have to just turn a blind eye to people saying that women getting raped on October 7th didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. No, Americans aren't going to support that. He turned back to AOC, saying she and other Democrats are once again fumbling the football on the 2-yard line while they have a chance to make great gains, but being so woke. I don't know if you want to call it woke 1, woke 2, woke 3, but being too woke to call out the obvious. I swear, we'll say to goodness, it's crazy, and that we're even having this conversation. We're bringing this up now because it seems an awful lot like what was happening in 2024 when Democrats couldn't get out of their own way to win an election they should have won. It's not just Joe Scarborough, though. Do you remember Julian, Julian Epstein, a veteran Democrat attorney? He's putting the legacy media on blast for what he's calling a shortage of coverage of the civil war that has broken out between the establishment and the far left candidates. This is what we've talked about on this program time and time again. The media is refusing to cover it because they just want a Democrat to win. They're not covering the more crazy, to use Scarborough's word, crazy things that are being said. Julian Epstein, who served as the chief legal counsel for House Democrats during the Clinton impeachment and later worked on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, made waves last week declaring his support for Republican Mike Rogers over progressive darling Abdul al-Sahad. He said, if you rely on MS Now for news, I think you're basically illiterate and uninformed about what's going on. It's less true for CNN, but also true. He claimed the legacy media was covering the Democratic infighting while hinting at the possibility of a civil war down the road, when in reality, we are in a civil war right now. I think the news media is missing that. But I think more importantly, they're missing the nature of the extremism that is happening with the left, and they're missing the bigotry that is emerging on the left. We've seen critical race is basically a permission slip for more bigotries. It's to divide, to tell people the most important thing about them is race, and then to start building a public policy around that. That's what critical race is. And now that they have embraced Islamic extremism, they've gone one step further in these set of beliefs. And I don't think the news media is covering that, and they should be covering that. Yeah, they're not doing a good job of covering the anti-Semitism, the pro-Islamic or pro-Islamic extremist views. The media's head would be collectively exploding, he said, if a KKK movement took hold in the Republican Party in the same way Hamas-aligned supporters have among Democrats. And we've made that argument here as well. But you see the most racist, ethno-supremacist movement on the planet, which is the Iranian Axis, which includes Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis. They don't want peace. They have one goal, which is the redemption of a 7th century caliphate. And the way to achieve that is through the massacre of Jews first, and slaughtering or forced conversion of Christians after that. It is the closest thing to a modern-day Hitler, and the Democrat Party is aligning with that. Now, keep in mind, this is a Democrat lawyer who's saying this. The longtime Clinton ally called the current movement within the Democrat Party a road to Damascus moment for moderate Democrats like myself, realizing that their party does not have a moral center. It's trying to lean into a failed postmodern liberal set of ideology that has failed. And what they believe, or let me try that again, and what they want to do is they want to black pill the public with more identity politics, and they want to grow a failing welfare state, which is, if you just look at what's happening in Europe, I mean, the welfare state is going to eat the continent. It's collapsing on its own weight because of the welfare state in Europe. So no, this is not a happy time, I think, for Democrats, but more importantly, it's not a happy time for the country. Now, Jewish Michigan Attorney General candidate, or not candidate, the Attorney General, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, who plans to skip the upcoming state Democrat convention out of concern for her own safety, blasted the state party for not doing enough to combat anti-Semitism. It's not combating. This idea that you're not doing enough to combat anti-Semitism. It's the opposite of not combat. It's embracing. They've embraced the anti-Semitism. in the Democrat Party. So this idea of they're not doing enough to combat it, I think that's past. That's in the rearview mirror. They didn't at first. Now you have the embracing of it. But think about how bad that is. You don't even want to, you can't even go to your own party's convention, the Democrat convention in your state, because you're fearful for your life because you're Jewish. Myself and other Jewish electeds are subjected to a barrage of anti-Semitic threats, Nessel said in an interview on MS Now. Nessel, who became the first Jewish person elected to statewide executive office in 2018, noted the threats are not a recent phenomenon, but are now combined with a lack of civil discourse. I would say absolutely they're not doing enough to address anti-Semitism. These people are still permitted to come to our convention. It's just baffling to me that while these charges are pending, they're going to be allowed to be there despite, these credible charges against them. And that was in relation to 5 defendants hit with a federal indictment for their alleged role in a conspiracy to threaten and harass the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit and Democrat officials, some of whom are Jewish. They're still allowed to go to the convention. In a statement, Michigan Democrat Party Chairman Curtis Hurdle said the party was appalled by the details of this incident and the hateful anti-Semitic threats that took place. The Michigan Democrat Party condemns all acts of hatred and violence which have no place in Michigan and should not be tolerated. Anyway. Nessel, who endorsed Representative Hallie Stevens, also urged winner Abdul El-Sahad to tone down his rhetoric. What I mean by that is, AIPAC, which many of us do not support or agree with, and Israel, which many of us do not support or agree with, their government or their actions of Benjamin Netanyahu, cannot be the central villain in literally every story. If we're talking about, reforming healthcare, which all of us want to do in this party, it's not AIPAC that is responsible for those problems. Anyway, enough on that. We got to take a short break. I don't want to run too late because we want to hear from our guests about the book Presidentes, but we got one more quick break, or one more quick segment, and then we'll be back. Stay with us.
This was our last chance to show who our son was. I can't say enough about pre-planning. When you are in those moments, you are not thinking clearly.
We showed up for the remembrance, and we walked in, and we just, wow.
It was arranged perfectly.
Yeah.
I certainly could not have done that in that moment. So to have those pre-conversations, it's really important.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
Come celebrate the 207th Steuben County Fair from Monday, August 17th through Sunday, August 23rd. Wednesday, August 19th is Broken Bee Rodeo starting at 7 p.m. And there's more. Demolition derbies, monster truck show, games, rides, fun for the whole family. For tickets and information, visit SteubenCountyFair.org. Experience the Steuben County Fair from August 17th through the 23rd.
When a child is fighting a critical illness, one truth touches us all. Every child deserves a childhood. A wish sparks a ripple of hope that transforms communities far and wide. And when we grant wishes together, we create a movement of kindness, strength, and unity. Yay! Become a wish maker today and be part of a journey that truly changes lives.
Well, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We'll see more clouds than sun overall today with a high of 82, right on track with daily average in the region, a range of 77 to 83. And we're starting to trend drier as well overnight, mostly cloudy skies, maybe some fog sitting up in the early morning in the upper 50s for low temperatures, then back with a high around 83 for our Wednesday. Isolated showers Thursday, then
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Ken has a couple comments this morning. I would be hard-pressed to believe that Blakeman would have put out an AI of Hochul saying things that she did not say. However, I would believe that Democrats would float that idea out there so that sheeple would be skeptical on anything they see from Blakeman. I think what it is, I think it's kind of like what... I'm drawing a blank here with a kid who ran in Spencer Pratt ran in L.A. mayor. It's kind of the fantastical ones where clearly they're AI, but they're funny, they get your attention. That's what it is. But they're trying to your point, Ken, they're trying to make it sound like all of his ads are that way. Ken continues, I see if it's true that a judge put a hold on Mamdani's tax on second homes. Which would be more believable? A liberal judge putting a hold on a Democrat socialist plan to get money from the rich, or Mamdani asking a liberal judge to put a hold on his harebrained idea to punish the rich by confiscating some of their wealth so he doesn't look foolish? That you raise a really good point, because it was the rollout was so disastrous. But who was it who said it? The New York Post editorial board said, yeah, they got rid of Mamdani's enemies list for now, but the socialists have put everyone on notice. And I thought that was a good way of putting it. They told you who they really are. Now, speaking of that, and we talked about this with former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski last week. They're not hiding who they are. And if you missed that, you can find it on YouTube. They're saying it right out. Now, President Trump called the Democrat Socialists of America. He said, Democrats are nominating jihadists. We have this, whatever, it's communism, jihadism. A friend of mine called up. He said, really, you should use the word jihadist because that's what's happening. And I'm not sure that anybody, if you take a look at what's happening in other countries, I think that's not going to be necessarily the way we want to live. But like the Post, I know I'm running late. The Post said, woke one was crazy. That's what AOC was saying. AOC and Abdul al-Sahad want you to forget all the lunatic stuff they and their buddies said a few years ago because you see, quote, woke one was crazy. So we're not supposed to judge them on their past statements. I don't know how you make that argument. What, they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the mindset to be right the first time? Is that who you want as your president? That's what AOC said when she was asked about fellow DSA member Francesca Hong. Hong has a colorful, mostly deleted Twitter feed, ranging from demands to cancel Thanksgiving, to hating white people, to eliminating the police. But AOC suggests we should overlook all those radical statements because they emerged from the turmoil of 2020 when everybody supposedly drank deep from the crazy pond. al-Sahad, Michigan's Democrat nominee for U.S. Senate, doesn't want to address any of the nutty things his endorser and pal Hassan Piker has said, such as calling October 7th victim reports of sexual violence rape fantasies, praising 9/11 as America's just desserts, or calling for the streets to run red with landlord blood. We need to move beyond gotcha politics, Abdullah Saad said. We're too stuck in cancel culture that all of us agreed was a bad idea back in 2020. If the left thinks a cancel culture they imposed was a bad idea or that woke one was crazy, does that mean they no longer hold those opinions? Well, no. The only real difference between woke one and woke two is the extra anti-Semitism added after al-Sahad's Hamas buddies invaded Israel and slaughtered over 1,000 innocents and started a war by kidnapping several hundred others. Oh, woke two was also a tad more circumspect. Hong talks up shifting funds toward community initiatives and non-carceral approaches to crime prevention. Still exactly what the defund crew demanded, but with that obviously idiotic part muted out. Al-Sahad has lied repeatedly about his old defund comments, mostly wiped from his social media history, claiming they were clickbait. That's true. People would likely click on his radical statements if they were still up to get a sense of who he is and what he thinks. He doesn't even really disown the statements. Indeed, al-Sahad has recently rationalized the attempted bombing of a Michigan synagogue by mourning that hurt people hurt people. And he's still explicitly on the 2020 abolish ICE bandwagon, plus the radical call to outlaw private health insurance and double tax on the middle class, as it would take to fund Medicaid or Medicare for all. The hard left keeps demanding that we ignore wacky stuff they said 5 years ago. Mayor Zohran Mamdani got away with it last year. House candidate Daraliza Vilek-Chavalar did this year. AOC can laugh all she likes at how crazy woke one was, but the joke's on anyone who buys it, because when the opportunity strikes, woke two will be worse. All right, we got to take a break, because when we get back, Presidentes, we're going to talk all about it. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Distracted driving is dangerous, but some people just can't seem to help themselves. There's the steering wheel propper, the sneak-a-peeker, the fast roller, the nightlighter. And it's not long until they become the fender benderer, the got-a-ticketer, the veering off the road, the driver who kills someone. Enough with the phones already. Just put them down.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Big day of smooth jazz awaits you at the Ferrario Elmira Jazz Festival. Join us at Thorne Street Park Saturday, August 15th for chart-topping jazz keyboardist Brian Simpson and soprano saxophonist Marion Meadows with local favorite Top Shelf. Celebrate with us. Tickets only $42. It's one big day. Buy tickets at ElmiraJazzFestival.com. Brian, Marion, and Top Shelf. One big day.
It's more than music!
Tide isn't just a gentle ebb and flow. It's a mighty force of change. Just like the tide shapes our shorelines, we can shape our planet's future and protect the world's oceans from its biggest threats. Help us turn the tide. Join Oceania's wave of ocean advocates who are making a difference in the world.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio, we're talking with the authors of Presidentes. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having us.
This is really exciting because I know, first of all, I don't even know where the name comes from for the book, let alone do I know about the subject matter. So if you want to begin, where does that name come from, Presidentes?
Sure. Well, Presidentes was first used to talk about Dolly Madison, the Washington National Intelligencer, the preeminent newspaper in Washington at the time. Her husband, James Madison, became president, used that term to convey that there was a significant female presence in the White House, that there would be some importance associated with that position. And it was reprised by Julia Tyler, by the media about Julia Tyler when she became First Lady in June of 1844. And we thought it was a, one word, very catchy slogan almost to describe her importance. We wanted to convey to the reader, to people who might pick up the book, that she had importance beyond what most people probably would expect. And we wanted people to also say, what does this mean? A Presidentes, we know what a president is, right, but Presidentes is obviously a female version of that, and we wanted to pique people's interest. We thought it was a great way to present the book.
And what was it specifically about Julia Tyler that you said a book needs to be written?
Well, she was I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I would say is that we didn't really pick Julia Gardner Tyler. I think Julia picked us, and one of the ways she picked us was because Chris was writing a book on John Tyler. That when I met Chris, he was expanding his dissertation on John Tyler, and he wrote a book called, President Without a Party, The Life of John Tyler, and that was published in 2020. But when he was doing all the research for that book, he had gone to Yale University. He had a bunch of letters of Julia copied and sent back to our house. So there's a huge box of her letters sitting on our dining room table. And I was thinking it was not really good for my decor. And finally, Frank, I said, listen, you have to address these letters or they're going to have to go out to the end of the street. And so he finally admitted he couldn't read her handwriting. So I said, I'll give it here, I'll try to see if I can read it. But he was right. She has the handwriting only a mother can love, okay? She never saw a punctuation mark she liked better than the dash.
Okay.
She didn't like periods, commas, exclamation points, question marks, nothing. A dash was it. And so I understood that I was going to end up getting sucked into this project. And so I feel like she chose us or she chose me, I would say, because I taught myself to read her handwriting. Wow. And then what we found was that she had been flattened by the historiography that had been written before. And every time we thought that we knew her, another document would appear, and that changed the story about her. So by the end of our research, we realized that we had been writing about 4 or 5 different Julias inside one remarkable woman, and that's what makes her story so compelling.
So what you're saying is, with her handwriting, she's kind of ahead of her time with texting. She would have fit right in.
She would have loved texting. It's been great. She would have had all those acronyms down.
Yeah. Smiley face instead of a period all the time. So what, with Presidentes and the name, what was the influence? Because again, a lot of people probably tuning in right now don't know a lot about Julia Tyler. What was her influence as role of First Lady?
Well, she was First Lady only for 8 months. And on the surface, that would appear to be the case where she didn't have much influence.
Right.
But what I think is significant, what we want people to understand, is that she essentially continued the evolution of the role of First Lady. Obviously, Martha Washington was the very first First Lady, the first president's wife.
Right.
But Dolly Madison really began to shape the institution of the First Lady, and Julia contributed to the evolution of that role. You know, she sort of moved the process along. She was very influential in terms of the social style of the Tyler administration. Previous accounts of her had made a lot about the fact that she had been to Europe when she was a young woman, and she brought a lot of European court sensibilities back to the White House. That's been a little bit over-exaggerated, but what she did do is reestablish the formality of White House social functions. She's also the first First Lady to have a portrait of herself hung in the White House. She donated her wedding portrait to the White House, and hers is the first. You know, we nowadays expect that the First Lady and the President both will have a portrait, an official portrait done, but Julia Tyler contributed to the evolution of that process by starting it.
And what was that? You mentioned the wedding painting. What was that wedding like?
So the wedding, and I'm just going to say this one sentence: America has had only one presidential elopement. And typically when you think of elopements, you know, the parents don't know about it, right? But it's interesting, her family all knew about it, and they were participating in the wedding, but no one on his side of the family, except for the one son that went with him, knew about it. So I would say he eloped, she just got married. But it actually became one of the greatest newspaper scoops in the 19th century, and only the Baltimore Sun knew ahead of time that he was going, and they described it. He had said, okay, so what happened was he had just lost this the legislation of, he was trying to get Texas in through legislation, and the Senate had voted it down. So I guess that put him in the romantic mood, and he decided to go get married. So he tells everybody he's going to go take a break. He's going to go down to Virginia and just chill out for a little while. Instead, the people at the Sun noticed that he got on a train that was going to New York. So they put something in the newspaper that day or the next day and said, hey, he looks like he's going to sign a treaty with the young Miss Julia Gardner from East Hampton up there in New York. So they were the first ones that got the scoop. Wow. But it was so quick that she didn't have time to finish hemming her wedding veil. So she clearly wasn't a bridezilla, because no bridezilla would ever walk down the aisle without having the hem of their wedding veil done. So she they in the morning they went over to the Church of the Ascension. That church is still extant. You can go. It's still a working church, and so you can see the very church that they were married in. And then that afternoon, they took a tour around the island of Manhattan on a military Navy ship. They fired cannons. Wow. So everyone knew that they were married after that. So then, you know, the avalanche of publicity started to happen on the pair of them. So I guess when you think about the real story, it's really better than the legend.
It really is. And that ties in because we talk about media coverage. And by the way, that's some dogged reporting by Baltimore Sun. That was taking a chance, right? But that's really impressive. But compare that when we talk about the media today and nonstop 24/7 coverage. Tell us about arguably the biggest story that some people may know about Julia Tyler, and that's the Rose of Long Island.
Okay, so the Rose of Long Island, I actually wrote an academic article about this back, I finished it in 2016. It was published in 2018 in New York History Journal. And what happened was, back in 2012, I had been reading a lot of her letters by that time and transcribing them for Chris's project. And I came upon this, this book, Robert Seeger's book, and Tyler too, and he asserts that she posed for this advertisement for this dry goods store, and that her family was upset about it. They took her off to Europe so that all the gossip would die about it. And I said to Chris, I just don't feel, this just doesn't feel right. He says, why do you say that? I said, she's so square, Chris. She doesn't do anything without talking to her parents first. I mean, she will actually make decisions where she almost does a survey for each person in her family. So it just, when that kind of tension happens in history, you have to start pulling the threads on it to see if it's really true.
Yeah.
And so he said, Chris kind of challenged me. He said, Sharon, do you think you can prove that? And I said, well, since Seeger says there's no letters about it in the Gardner-Tyler papers, I guess what I would do is go after the artist.
Right.
And that's when I started looking into Alfred E. Baker's past. And I also had the benefit of digital newspapers. So now I will, and you can probably understand this, Frank.
Right.
You Google a man that's named A.E. Baker, you can imagine how many things are going to come up to the top.
Yeah.
But I just said I will start at the top and work my way down. So the 2,000 things that came up, probably like 1,978, an article came up that said that this man was thrown in jail for creating caricatures for women, for daughters of prominent New York society families. And it's interesting, when I did finally go back to Yale, I found 2 letters that perhaps had not been processed when Seeger had done all of his work back in 1960. And it was a letter that she wrote to her brother saying, my caricature got to East Hampton by way of Sag Harbor. And when she wrote the word caricature, I realized, okay, this is not an advertisement. This is a caricature. This is a new animal we have to look for. Yeah. Once you understand what you're looking for, then it actually becomes easier. And it's not 100% easy, but you know what you're looking for. And that was very helpful. So that, to me, is one of the biggest things that we found that actually opened up all of the understanding of why she was the way she was once she became First Lady, and then post First Lady. She was already well known in the public. She had met the editor of the New York Herald when she was debuting her debut in 1839. So he started writing about her right away. So she was already a public person before she ever married Tyler. The Rose of Long Island assured that as well. And then when she marries Tyler, then she becomes part of political caricatures moving forward. So I think most of your first ladies, you probably know that they marry their husband. Their husband escalates through the political world, and then they become first lady. So they kind of see the direction. Julia was already a public person, then she married another public person. So it's a very different dynamic. So yeah, the Rose of Long Island caricature was a big linchpin in both the research and understanding how she behaved towards the press later in life.
Do you think your next project is going to be the biography of Alfred E. Baker?
Well, it's interesting. I found out a lot about Alfred E. Baker because, thank you for showing
I know. I should have had it on the screen better, but yeah. There you go.
No, he started out as an artist, and then he went to jail, and they destroyed all of the lithographic stones, and that was something I had to teach myself. What is the lithography process? And it's actually done on these big, thick stones. And they went and cracked all of his stones. So he basically, they put him out of business. Wow. And so then he became like a night policeman. He also worked for the New York Herald.
Oh, interesting.
James Gordon Bennett, and he actually saved James Gordon Bennett's life. Someone sent him a bomb. They called it an infernal machine, but he deactivated the bomb before it could go off. And James Gordon Bennett made sure that he became New York City's first fire marshal. So he had a very interesting life, and that's something about 19th century America that is very unusual. There were no Social Security. There was no unemployment.
Right.
If you'd failed at one job, you just decided to do another job. And he ultimately went back to being an artist. When he died, he was back doing what he, I guess, loved to do, and was an artist. So he had a really interesting life too.
So we talk about, you had to essentially translate her letters. We're talking about looking into lithograph, things like that. So a lot of rabbit holes. How long does something like this take to put together, essentially?
So I would say it took about 3 years for me to do the journal article, to do all the research and writing and all of that. And then Chris's book came out right when COVID hit, so 2020. And then we probably started working in earnest on putting together a book for Julia Gardner Tyler, Presidentes, as you see on the screen, and in 2021. So I guess it's been total about 8 years, really, in the works.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anything when you did all this and you did go down all these rabbit holes that surprised either of you the most, that it was the kind of your big takeaway from all your research?
Yeah, I was surprised by just how wrong the previous historiography had been on so many of the most significant details of her life, which, of course, once you start getting the other details wrong, the entire life becomes suspect. So I was surprised by how wrong most historians had been. I guess the other thing that surprised me the most was that she had a really complicated relationship with Dolly Madison. She had Dolly Madison attend, or she at least invited Dolly Madison to every presidential function that she hosted. So she recognized the historical importance of Dolly Madison to the role of First Lady.
Sure.
And on the surface, it looked like they had, this really terrific relationship, a mother-daughter, mentor-mentee kind of relationship. But as we got more into the research, we got deeper into that relationship, we discovered there were some things that made it more complicated than I suspected it would be. And also, I think in some ways it was more complicated in the sense that Dolly knew it was complicated, but Julia didn't know everything that was going on behind the scenes. So I think that's actually an interesting part of the book, is to focus on this relationship she had with Dolly Madison. That really surprised me.
Are you surprised when you learn all this, that this is actually like the first full-scale biography? Correct me if I'm wrong, right? The full-scale biography?
Yes.
Do you think would you have expected something sooner?
Well, I think First Lady's studies as a subgenre of history has only recently begun to take off. We see a lot of books about First Ladies, particularly the modern First Ladies, but we're going back in time into the 19th century and seeing more scholarly work being done on First Ladies. So it doesn't surprise me in terms of the historical profession focusing on other topics, but I think it's almost the time has come now for a full-scale biography of Julia Tyler, just like the time has come to look at First Ladies more broadly.
And what a good segue, because I was just going to bring up Keuka College.
All right.
How do you like this segue? Speaking of learning about more First Ladies, what do you got going on at Keuka College?
Well, this semester I'm doing the second version of my First Ladies course. It's for History 250, which is called Reading the Past. And every fall I teach this course. It's a combination of methods and narrative course that we've developed. And every semester, every fall, I have a different theme. This fall's theme is First Ladies. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at 4 biographies of First Ladies, trace the evolution of the role of First Lady through Dolly Madison, Mary Lincoln, Jackie Kennedy, and Barbara Bush, and look at how the role has changed, and also look at the context of power. What power do First Ladies have? How can they have power when there's nothing constitutionally designated for them, in terms of what their role might be?
Right.
So I'm really, really looking forward to this. I taught the class in a different fashion, taught a First Ladies class in a different fashion 2 years ago, And I've sort of built on what I liked about that course, what I thought worked really well. We start with Michelle Obama's 2016 Democratic National Convention speech. And, you know, I guess if anybody's listening that's in the class, they'll have a preview of this. What they're going to do is they're going to look at how that speech illustrates First Lady's power, and then we're going to go back in time to see how we got there. So I'm really, really excited about this. I'm really looking forward to the semester.
Well, and that's why I think, and I should have prefaced it by saying that you work at Keuka College. Like, Keuka College has such unique offerings like this, and I think what makes it so special for not just our area, but for anybody that attends.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of flexibility for instructors. You know, you have obviously your basic framework for curriculum and for things that you must do. You know, I teach both halves of the U.S. survey course, which is a staple in every college and university throughout the country. But this course, my division chair, Jenny Joyner, and I worked it out when we were redoing the curriculum several years ago. So it does offer a bit of flexibility. I like the flexibility of being able to do different themes. Last fall, I did Vietnam War memoirs. That was a really intense course. In fact, I really didn't want to replicate the intensity of that course, as you can imagine, for, you know, emotionally for this fall. So I decided to take on the First Lady space again.
And I love just in general timing with this for America 250. And before we go, I'm going to ask you kind of maybe the tough question, because there is some, for lack of a better word, I don't want to say controversy, but like her whole history. So what do you think her legacy will be, or is, I should say?
Well, she does have a complicated legacy. She was New York born. She was Northern born. She married a slave-holding Southerner. Was in love with him, you know, married him in a you know, with noble intentions, so to speak. But she ended up having to adapt to the enslavement system that was in operation at Sherwood Forest, their home in Charles City County, Virginia. And one of the things that we trace throughout the course of Julia's life is her adaptability. She told her mother right before she left the White House to go live in Virginia that she would make the best of the situation. And, you know, reading between the lines, and you don't even really need to read too much between the lines, we knew that she was talking about slavery and that she was uncomfortable with that. But to assure that she had a happy marriage, she had to adapt to the system. She ended up obviously playing a role in the system, being that she was immersed in it for so long. And I think that's what complicates her legacy, even more so that she became a Confederate sympathizer, Confederate partisan once the Civil War began, and actually at one point even denigrated her home state, birth and birthplace in the North, in favor of the South. And this actually cost her a great deal, because when the war was over, she was not really regarded as even having been a First Lady. Her husband, John Tyler, the ex-president, had signed on. He'd been elected to the Confederate Congress. He's the only U.S. president to ever renounce his citizenship. So he really became literally a traitor president. And all of that was the burden that she had to face post-Civil War. And she spent a lot of time trying to reclaim her status as First Lady. She went for a government pension. That was a big fight, you know, very determined fight to win a pension, and she ultimately did. But her legacy, even at the time, her legacy even during her lifetime, was quite complicated because of the role that she played in the slave system and with the Confederacy.
Well, first of all, I got to say thank you for giving us so much time. I think I could keep you all day because this is fascinating. I've started the book. Everybody get it on September 29th. Before we go, where's the best place to buy it when people line up on September 29th?
Well, I would just say go anywhere where you buy books, because it's Amazon. You can go to the University Press of Kansas, any independent bookstore, just it's available. So I'm very pleased that you've been able to take some time to talk to us today.
Yes. Well, thank you for giving me so much time. That's like I said, I still have so many more questions. So maybe we'll do a follow-up. How's that?
That sounds good.
I wouldn't mind that. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thanks again. Best of luck when they release Presidentes, September 29th. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Stay with us.
When you're online, don't forget to
Visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Let me ask you a question. Does it matter if the law firm you hire focuses on motor vehicle accidents? Has the experience to take on big insurance? Will go to court to win? Has won over $1 billion for their clients? If that matters to you, come to William Mattar. We are the largest motor vehicle accident firm in the state. Call William Mattar for the recovery you deserve. Hurt in a car, it matters who you hire.
You deserve primary care that connects. Care that helps you move forward. To a provider who knows you. To the care you need. To the life you love. That's the power of a strong connection. Meet your new primary care provider at centralishealth.org/schedule and be seen within a week.
Let's say this is your head. It's way too easy to let it fill up with anxieties, worries. If that happens, visit yourlifeyourvoice.org. You'll find ideas that can help you get back on track. You only have one head. Look after it.
Well, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We'll see more clouds than sun overall today with a high of 82, right on track with daily average in the region, a range of 77 to 83. And we're starting to trend drier as well. Overnight, mostly cloudy skies, maybe some fog sitting up in the early morning, in the upper 50s for low temperatures, then back with a high around 83 for our Wednesday. Isolated showers Thursday.
Relaxing in your very own Hesselson's Hot Tub. Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The only thing more American than apple pie and 4th of July is baseball. This year, WYDC is bringing you 25 New York Mets games free over the air this spring and summer. No fees and no subscription services. Just turn on WJKP 48.2 and grab a comfortable seat right at home to watch baseball history unfold. Make sure you don't miss a home run. And tune into WJKP 48.2 to watch the New York Mets this MLB season. Let's go Mets!
Big day of smooth jazz awaits you at the Ferrario Elmira Jazz Festival. Join us at Thorne Street Park Saturday, August 15th for chart-topping jazz keyboardist Brian Simpson and soprano saxophonist Marion Meadows with local favorite Top Shelf. Celebrate with us. Tickets only $42. It's one big day. Buy tickets at ElmiraJazzFestival.com. Brian, Marion, and Top Shelf. One big day.
It's more than...
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. We want to thank our friends, the authors of the new book, Presidentes, for being on the program. The life of First Lady Julia Tyler. All right, we were talking before a break about this new, argument that AOC is making, which is... all kind of the radical statements, whether Francisca Hogg, whether it's her, that was woke one, and that we have to ignore that. Carol Markowitz says, remember the early 2020s when cancel culture ran rampant. Remember, al-Assad was arguing that we all agreed we didn't want cancel culture, but it was his party that was doing the canceling. But defunding the police was a standard position on the left, and we were all supposed to fall in line with their bad ideas or else. Remember that? Now AOC wants us to pretend all of that away, to ignore it. So again, I don't have to go with Hong. We've already talked enough about her, but her election is today. That's going to be one that we'll be focusing on tomorrow. AOC argued that Hong has moved away from some of her more controversial positions, then giggled that she agreed with New York City Councilman Chi Oze, who has said woke one was crazy. Tee woke one, you guys. We are so goofy and silly that with destroying the lives of anyone who mildly disagreed with us. Forget about all the crazy things we said, focused on the cleaned up versions of those positions that we're spouting now. But before we move on, perhaps a few follow-up questions. What era of woke are we in now? 2? 5? Which parts in particular does the left regret? Is it stuff like a New York Times columnist saying the cartoon character Pepe Le Pew normalized rape culture? Or when we finally solved racism by getting rid of Aunt Jemima on the pancake syrup? Was it the 57 genders? Does it no one want to get rid of police departments or prisons anymore? The left only stopped some of this nonsense because the American people made them stop, largely by electing President Donald Trump for a second term. Trump's most powerful ad noted that Kamala Harris, now somehow a moderate in today's Democrat culture, wanted free sex changes for illegal immigrant criminals. Remember, that was the biggest, most effective ad that Trump had. It seemed so outlandish that it couldn't be true, but it was. The left has realized how absurd their ideas sound to everyday Americans, and they're trying to message what they really believe. As AOC admitted, I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way we talked about crime and bringing crime down, right? I think that during lockdown, of course, rhetoric, and in that time, is not rhetoric that we would use today. In June of 2020, when NYC or New York City proposed cutting NYPD's budget by $1.5 billion, AOC didn't think that went far enough, saying defunding police means defunding police. It doesn't mean budget tricks or funny math. A month later, she said crime is a symptom of a diseased society that neglects its most marginalized people, and we do not solve that problem with police. But it wasn't just a symptom of the lockdowns. Before COVID, back in 2019, AOC tweeted that we need to have a real conversation about decarceration and prison abolition in this country. She was for getting rid of the police departments and prison. Are we supposed to just forget that she said that? And more importantly, are we supposed to really believe she doesn't think that anymore? Or she's just savvy enough to say otherwise? There is no woke 2. It's exactly the same as woke 1, just better focused, grouped. And Isaac Shore saying that to ignore this ignores the fact that much of this rhetoric that they were pushing at the time burnt cities to the ground, destroyed lives. This rhetoric at the time. So it's not something that can be ignored. And I don't want to go through. We've heard some of the crazy quotes. I don't want to fall in the trap where we laugh at what she's saying because she means it. That's why we need to take it seriously. And you've got, like with al-Assad, who had said radical things. He was campaigning with Hassan Piker. Well, the Democrat bigwigs of the party are now embracing al-Assad in the Michigan race, calling him a fighter. Gavin Newsom saying that. Even Barack Obama giving him a call. They're embracing him. Now, we got to take another short break. And then we're going to wrap up today's edition. So get your last minute comments, get your last minute waves in, and we'll be right back after this.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Whether you're in the market for new, used, or certified pre-owned, Simmons Rockwell locations across the Twin Tiers have more of what you're looking for with our best price right on the windshield. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
Well, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We'll see more clouds than sun overall today with a high of 82, right on track with daily average in the region, a range of 77 to 83. And we're starting to trend drier as well. Overnight, mostly cloudy skies, maybe some fog sitting up in the early morning. in the upper 50s for low temperatures, then back with the high around 83 for our Wednesday. Isolated showers Thursday, then we wait till Sunday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horses. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from Ken: it's no secret that when we near Election Day, all the positions that Democrats are vocal on miraculously evolve into a position that is more conservative. Then after elected, they evolve back to their original positions. Absolutely. And it's been said so many times that the Democrats have to run as essentially conservatives in the general election if they want to win. They know that. So right now they're going with the extreme positions in the primaries, or if you're AOC thinking about running for president, you've got to win your far left primary. Then she'll evolve, like you said, for lack of a better word. Comment from a different viewer: Frank, have a beautiful day. Well, thank you very much. You have a beautiful day as well. So we will have your coverage tomorrow of Francisca Hong's race. She has become kind of the Democrat Socialists of America darling, though she said enough outlandish things that even Bernie Sanders wouldn't endorse her. But we had mentioned earlier Mamdani, who kind of started this rise of the Democrat Socialists of America. He was forced to pause his second house tax and pull down Shame the Rich list, some calling it a enemies list. Staten Island Supreme Court Justice Wayne Ozzie issued the temporary restraining order, effectively putting the luxury second home tax on ice until at least August the 31st. The judge barred the city from taking any further action on the 17,000 notices sent by the Department of Finance to homeowners, which declared that they would face a 5-figure tax bill unless they requested an exemption. Mamdani quickly promised to fight the ruling and attempt to get the restraining order lifted and his socialist tax-to-rich policy get it rolling again. Well, we disagree with today's ruling, but we are confident in both the surcharge and the city's ability to implement it fairly and effectively, said a spokesperson for the mayor. The surcharge asks those who own second homes valued at $5 million or more to contribute their fair share to the city they benefit from. The law department will appeal the ruling immediately, which will stay the order, and the city will continue with the implementation. It was a bad rollout. It was a disastrous rollout. But I think in the Post said this, and I know I hinted towards it earlier on in the program, you have to still realize that what Mamdani did is put everyone on notice. So great that Judge Wayne Ozzie derailed this for the time being, but this was just the beginning. Mamdani and Governor Hochul sold the levy as hitting only non-residents who own ultra-expensive luxury homes that are usually empty. Russian oligarchs who park tens of millions of dollars on Billionaires Row, or capitalists like Zoe's favorite target, Ken Griffin. Yet the actual prove your innocence letters went to thousands of baffled full-time New Yorkers whose modest homes are worth nowhere near the $5 million threshold that Mamdani keeps repeating. Because Hochul's crack crew decided it should hit co-ops and condos starting at $1 million. Worse, after the Department of Finance got it down to 17,000 possible targets, Mamdani's minions put out a database publicly of hundreds of thousands with no possible good reason for issuing a hit list the city knew to be 95% correct. Or 95% incorrect, very important difference. This mass doxing can only be understood as Mao-style anti-landlord rabble-rousing, aiming to shame and scare the radicals' class enemies. It was a warning. The movement has you in their sights, whether or not you qualify for this tax. Judge Ozzie's giving city lawyers a chance to explain otherwise, but it sure looks like the equity noise doesn't mean just some dubious route to racial justice. They're also talking about your home equity, and they can't wait to get their hands on it. Well, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you. Oh, a funny headline from Politico. New York climate hawks. Breaking up is hard to do. Yes, they're suggesting Hochul hasn't been strong enough on global energy policy. Again, thank you to our friends Christopher and Sharon Leahy. Join us on the program from Keuka College, Christopher is, for joining us to talk about Presidentes coming out in September. It's a really good book. I just started it. Kind of started it, but it's very good. I think you're going to find it really interesting. But that does it. Have a great day, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll see you bright and early. Look forward to it already.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.